Now we're discussing the 3 weeks and Tisha B'Av. Turn to page 113. And this is a new discussion on the final part of our holiday class. The 3 weeks and Tisha B'Av. What are the 3 weeks? What exactly do they represent? Why do we call them the 3 weeks anyway? The 3 weeks between?
When the temple was breached and then when it...
Not the temple. The outer walls. The 17th of Tammuz. The 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. That is a 3-week period.
Wait, is that what that one's a fast day too?
Yeah. We're going to see what happened on both of these days. There are 3 weeks. This is the most difficult, challenging time for the Jewish people. Let's start by going to the first ever Tisha B'Av, which most of you are not aware of. And the first ever Tisha B'Av was actually a night of crying. And what was that crying? That was the sin of the spies. Page 113. Let's have a look inside the Torah. You know that Moshe Rabbeinu allowed 12 spies to go in to spy out the land before the Jewish people entered. 10 of them came back with a report of Lashon Hara, speaking bad about the land. It took them 40 days to cover the entire land, which in and of itself was a miracle. To see all of Israel in 40 days obviously is impossible. Since they came back with a Lashon Hara support, since the Jewish people heard their report and believed it, and as the Rambam says, the listener of Lashon Hara is worse than the speaker, the Jewish people were makabel the report about the land of Israel, and they were punished with 40 years, 1 year per day. 1 year per day of their touring. So 40 days became 40 years as a kapara. That means that entire generation had to die out. The entire generation had to die out, and they were not allowed into the land of Israel. So when the spies came back, they went to the Jewish people and they said, the land is terrible, they're going to kill us, we have no chance, let's go back to Egypt, or let's stay here in the Midbar. The Jewish people listened, they cried all night. That crying, they cried for no reason. Hashem said, fine, you cry for no reason, I'll give you a reason to cry for. Okay? And that was actually the night, the first ever Tisha B'Av. That night, Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av, has been a thorn in our sides for thousands of years. Most bad events that have happened to Jewish people, the big stuff, occurred on that day or around that day. For example, the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed on that day. The expulsion from Spain in 1492 happened on Tisha B'Av. When I was in Auschwitz, I noticed that the Auschwitz was actually officially opened on the 9th of Av as well. I think the First World War actually even started on the 9th of Av, which was a precursor to the Second World War. So both world wars started, with the First World War started on the 9th of Av. So that day has become a day of tremendous, I've got to get through a lot of stuff today, a tremendous difficulty and challenge for the Jewish people. That's what the Gemara says. Since you cried without cause, I'm going to give you a day to cry for. So until Mashiach comes, that's going to be a day of real mourning. Now we spoke about the Omer, remember that? Rabbi Akiva's students died. That is a happy time, but something bad happened on it. Remember we spoke about that? This is different. Tisha B'Av and the 3-week lead up to it is in and of itself a bad time. It is a negative time. There are certain things we don't do leading up to it, on the day itself, during the day, and that is what happens on Tisha B'Av. Right? And by the way, it shows that it's possible to speak Lashon Hara about the land of Israel, which is considered a great gift. Someone gives you a gift and you complain about it, what happens? The gift is taken away. So we know right now there is a direct connection between Lashon Hara and Galut and exile. The two are connected. They reflect one another. And that's why the Gemara says that any nation, any generation that doesn't rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, it's as though they destroyed it. Why would that be? Because obviously Lashon Hara is at the cause of the exile. Even Moshe Rabbeinu in Egypt, he killed a Mitzri who was trying to kill a Jewish person, and then other Jewish people said, oh, you're going to kill us too like this? You're a killer. Right? And he's like, now I understand why we're still in Galut. Now I know we're still here because of Lashon Hara. So Lashon Hara is directly linked to the state of us being in exile or remaining in exile, whether it's Egypt, whether it's the 4 exiles, or whether we get attacked today. There's always a little bit of Lashon Hara, right? Sinat Chinam, because baseless hatred comes from Lashon Hara, that is kind of sewed into it.
But I know we're not allowed to build the Beit HaMikdash until, like, right
Mashiach's
now.
job is going to build the Beit HaMikdash, that's right. No, you cannot do it right now. It's Mashiach's job. What? Okay. Thank you for that, Leo. I'm not going to put that on film. I'll get arrested. Yeah, go on.
If the Omer is not like a part of, like, I guess, mourning.
It is a form of mourning, the Omer. My point was that the Omer period is a happy period, which has a bad event that happened over it. But when you take that away, it becomes good again. This is negative from the beginning. It is a bad negative time.
Is there a connection to why we do similar things on the
Oh, both have Hilchot Avelut, mourning. Both have Hilchot Avelut. They both have mourning aspects to it. We're mourning the students of, or we're mourning the Beit HaMikdash. So they have it right. All of that are right symbols of mourning of Avelut. The point is that the one is inherently bad from the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. One was 1,000 years later, an event happened, but it's inherently good. That's the difference between this is the real.
Something that we do on the 3 weeks that separate.
Yes, we're going to see what those things are. We don't get married. There's various things we do not do during that time, which are similar to the Omer period, but are a lot more strict.
I always got confused between the 3 weeks and the Omer.
Well, there are 2 very different reasons. One is because of the sin of the spies and the Beit HaMikdash, and one is because of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Obviously, the Tisha B'Av one is much worse. That's a lot worse with what happens over there. Okay? Yeah.
So, wait, Rabbi, so then why are we in Galut then?
Because obviously, we can build it. Because if we start speaking Lashon Hara, Mashiach comes and then he gets to build it for us. That's what it means.
Oh, like we would basically be the bringing.
That is correct. Okay, so there are 4 fast days in the Jewish calendar. Let's have a look at these 4 fasts. How do we know this? It says in the book of Zechariah, chapter 8, verse 19. Says Hashem, there's going to be the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month. Let's go through the fast days, what Zechariah is referring to. So basically, when it comes to the fast days, we're going to see actually there are going to be 6 fast days. 4 of them are directly related to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. And I'll give you a little way of remembering the 4 fast days. Actually, all 6 I'll give you right now. They are black. This is just a way to remember them. White, long, short, man, long, short over here, man and woman. That's the way I remember it. That's the way I teach to my students. That's why I learned it as a child. And that's how you're going to remember it as well.
That's only 5.
Black, white, long, short, man, woman. That's 6. So what's the black fast? That's the darkness one. That is Tisha B'Av. That's the 9th of Av, which we're talking about now, which describes the destruction of the sin of the spies and the destruction of the first and second Beit HaMikdash. The white fast is Yom Kippur. That's not a sad fast, and that's got nothing to do with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. That's just once a year. We'll see next semester we get to whiten ourselves from our sins and to remove all Aveirot. The long fast is, we just mentioned, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, because it's in the summer and it's very, very long. I'm going to see why that was. That's going to be the beginning of the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. The short one is the 10th of Tevet, which is more related to the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. The man is Gedaliah. Gedaliah was one of the great leaders of the Jewish people who was assassinated by a Jew, around the temple period. And the woman, of course, is, And that is the
Esther.
3rd of Tishrei, the day after Rosh Hashanah. And the last one is Esther. That, of course, is, we discussed at the beginning of the semester, is Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther, which is Erev Purim. The fast of Esther, okay, which is the 13th. Okay, that is when we fast. Okay, so those are your 6 fast days. So that's what Zachariah is referring to. Okay, the 4th month, the 10th of Tevet,
Is what fast?
is the fast that describes the, well, we'll see, the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash.
The 17th of Tammuz.
That's the second Beit HaMikdash.
Oh, and this one
What
is
about
the
Yeah,
first?
yeah.
I thought it was just the walls.
The outer walls that led to the eventual destruction, yeah.
Wait, so the 17th of Tammuz is for the walls and the
17th of Tammuz, yeah. Let's have a look. Look at page 115. 5 things happened on the 17th of Tammuz. Let's write them down. Number 1, the Luchot were broken by Moshe Rabbeinu. That's number 1. Number 2, during the first temple period, there were 2 sacrifices that had to be suspended in that time. Number 3, the walls of Jerusalem by the Romans prior to the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. So they broke down the walls. It took time for them to make their way into Jerusalem because there were great walls that defended Jerusalem. Number 4, the wicked apostates burned the Torah, the Greek. And number 5, we'll see each one of these in a minute. Number 5, there was an idol that was put inside the temple courtyard. Okay? That was during basically the time of Menashe, during the first temple period. Some say it refers to actually a different one, but the Greeks put up in the second temple period. Either way, there was an idol that put up, whether it was the first Beit HaMikdash or the second temple period by the Greeks. Either way, it's not good. Okay? There were 5 things that happened on the 9th of Av. That's on page 116. Chamisha devarim iru et avatenu b'Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. They are Nigzar al avatenu shelo yichnasu aretz. Our ancestors were told, you're not going to enter into Israel. That's the sin of the spies. Number 1. Number 2, first temple destroyed. Number 3, second temple destroyed. Number 4, after that, there was a city called Beitar that was a stronghold of Jewish people that was captured. And number 5 was years later, the Romans saw there were still Jews living in Jerusalem. Okay? And there were some ruins still there, and they plowed it over. And that happened on Tisha B'Av as well, the Romans. So all these 5 things happened on that day, but over different time periods.
That's crazy.
Okay? Okay. Really, it says in the book of Kings, the destruction took place on the 11th of Av. However, the 9th of Av was when it actually started. That's when everything started to burn. So we actually commemorate the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash on the 9th of Av. That's when it started to burn. Yeah, it took time. It took a long time. And there were thousands and thousands of Jewish people who were killed by the Romans during that second temple period. Okay? Okay, so that's really what happened. The main destruction happened on that day, and that's why the 9th of Av was selected as the day for it as well.
And this is Vashti's grandfather?
No, that's Nebuchadnezzar. He destroyed the first Beit HaMikdash.
But this is Vashti's grandfather?
This is that's the first Beit HaMikdash. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
That's crazy. That's all religion.
Yeah. Look what happened in Beitar. Turn to page 118. In Beitar, right, Tisha B'Av, the large city of Beitar had thousands of Jews. They were captured, many were killed, and many were taken to Rome for various nefarious purposes. Okay? They say there were thousands of children who were taken captive at that time by the Romans and schlepped by a ship to Rome. And along the way, many things, terrible things happened to them. Many of them ended up actually committing suicide rather than be involved in their nefarious plans. The kidnapping of Jews is not a new thing. That's precisely what happened over there. Okay? So in 135 CE, page 119, right, the temple grounds were plowed over. This is like 65 years after the second Beit HaMikdash. Okay? This was actually the work of Turnus Rufus, Yamach Shemo, and he basically knew that there was a prophecy of Jeremiah that the land around Yerushalayim would be plowed over. So he actually wanted to fulfill that. And he wanted to be the one who would be known for that. Okay? So why are we still commemorating? If you'll see that a number of these things that we fast over, 4 of them at least, involve directly the Beit HaMikdash. So what's the world like without a Beit HaMikdash? When we see what the world is like without a Beit HaMikdash, we're going to be able to figure out why we want the Beit HaMikdash rebuilt. Because whatever does not exist now, because we don't have it, will exist when we do have it. Okay? So number one, we know that the Shekhinah, page 120, the Shekhinah, the Hashem's presence in this world, is not as great without a Beit HaMikdash. Okay? When the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, Hashem's Shekhinah, Hashem's presence in this world, anywhere in the world, is directly affected, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu manifested himself in this world through the Beit HaMikdash. So you have no Beit HaMikdash, you have no real presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Number two, Nevuah. Nevuah actually does not exist without a Beit HaMikdash, according to many opinions. That's why after the first temple was destroyed, the ark was concealed, and because of that, we've lost a lot of simcha. Because you cannot have Nevuah without simcha. Since we don't have Beit HaMikdash, we have no simcha, and therefore no simcha, no Nevuah. This is why Yaakov Avinu, when his son Yosef was taken away, didn't have any Nevuah. So without prophecy, no prophecy. Prophecy is the last clear channel by Hashem. So Yaakov Avinu became depressed when Yosef was taken away. From the time he was taken away till the time he returned, he did not receive any nevuah, any direct communication from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because he was depressed. And somebody who's depressed does not receive nevuah. Nevuah only comes through happiness and simcha. That is a prerequisite for prophecy. What? You need to have simcha, yeah. That's why David HaMelech always put musical instrument, some say a harp, right, Kirnu David, in his window, the Gemara says. So when the wind would come in, it would kind of like play against it, would wake him up. And that made him happy. And that's how he was able to receive Nevuah. Because he was able, 1 second. Because he was able to, right. Point is, he was able to use music to lift up his spirits, and that was a prerequisite. Actually, the first time Shaul HaMelech received Nevuah was because he was walking around, there was a band of people playing music, he heard the music, and he started to have Nevuah for the first time. It was actually the music that brought him simcha that gave him Nevuah. Yeah, but it's also a state of simcha. You feel that. In other words, the music can elicit that, can create the happiness you need in order to receive it. Yeah, that's what it comes from. So if you don't have that, then, I mean, during the first time period, there was a lot of prophecy. What? Sure, many nigunim. Not that you have today. It's not like, Yaakov Shweki up there in the Beit HaMikdash singing, everyone's getting into it, I'm saying, Baruch Levine, right, or Dveikus, album 1, 2, 3, or 4. It was a form of music that we don't have anymore, which brought tremendous simcha. That's why the Mishnah says that people, the happiest time of the year actually was, which holiday was the happiest time of the year? Actually, you see the word simcha mentioned in relation to this holiday more than any other, is Sukkot. All of Sukkot. V'samachta b'chagecha v'yitach smech. The chag refers to Sukkot. Okay? So simcha, right. Sukkot is the happiest time of the entire year for the Jewish people, and the Mishnah says that people who never experience the simcha of Sukkot, the simcha bet HaShoeva, the celebration of the Beit HaMikdash on Sukkot, don't even know what happiness is. They can't even fathom the idea of simcha. That's what it says in the Mishnah, page 121. Kol mi shelo ra simcha bet HaShoeva. Whoever didn't see this water drawing ceremony that was done on Sukkot, lo ra'a simcha miyamav. They never experienced true joy. So with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, there's no more simcha bet HaShoeva. That means simcha has been reduced. There's less simcha in the world without a Beit HaMikdash. Okay? So prophecy is affected by it. Simcha is affected by it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is affected by it. Our tefillot are also affected by this. Our tefillot, right? Why? Because tefillah, we know from the days of Yaakov Avinu, direct up through Har Habayit, through Temple Mount. Actually, that's true to this very day. All tefillot in the entire world travel through the walls of the rabbis, go to Eretz Yisrael, go in to Yerushalayim, and they ascend to Shemayim via Har Habayit. They do not believe that. It's not written anywhere that they believe such a thing. Yeah. Yeah. Every prayer. You can pray wherever you want. I prayed Beth Knesset Manhattan this morning. I led a minyan. Okay, that tefillah travels to Eretz Yisrael. What? Same thing. Kivrei Tzadikim, there's just, you're praying in the schut of the met, and the dead person that's there, a little bit of the neshama remains there. That's what you're still praying to Hashem, though. You're still praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay?
Can you explain the ark thing?
The what?
From the first one, the whole thing about the ark being sealed. What ark?
So it's just the Ark of the Covenant that kept inside it the...
No, it's like I'm thinking, when I hear ark, I'm thinking like...
No, you're thinking of a different, that wrong one. That's ARC. This is the Ark of the Covenant. They kept the Luchot in, and the first ever Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, that existed during the First Temple period. It did not exist during the Second Temple period. So there was a lacking of Nevuah during the Second Temple period because that was hidden away. They hid away the Ark, and it's still hidden away. Okay? So how do we know Har Habayit is the place that all tefillah goes? So that's Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, if you remember, is running away from his brother Esav. And he gets to Har Habayit. And he falls asleep. And he has a dream. And in the dream he sees angels going up and down the ladder, Jacob's ladder. Olim v'yordim bo. Going up and going down. And he wakes up and he realizes that this is Shar HaShamayim, the gateway to heaven. That's what he refers to it as. It's for this reason that many years later, David HaMelech decided the temple needs to be built on that site. And Shlomo HaMelech, his son, builds the Beit HaMikdash on that site. That site, however, was known even before the days of Yaakov because his grandfather Abraham brought his father Yitzchak as a potential sacrifice to that place. Okay? So that place was always known to be a holy, special location. And it goes back even further to the days of creation of the world, that the original stone that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from is there. Right? It is the center of the world, which is the center of the universe. We see the whole universe revolving around Earth. Right? That is not an astronomical claim, it's a spiritual one.
There's a stone?
Evan Shasiya, yeah. It's over there, and that is the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, created the world. So we've had this history of that mountain, and that's why it's so special. The days of Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov, right? Everything happens around that. And eventually, the first and second Beit HaMikdash. Okay, so that's where we learn from the Shar HaShamayim. This is the gateway to heaven. That is the place to pray to Hashem. Now there's no temple on top. It's not as effective. It's not as effective. It's still good. Hashem listens to all tefillot of all people, of all nations. But when there's lacking a Beit HaMikdash, there's something chaser. There's something that's lacking from it. Okay? That's why the Gemara says that on page 122, Miyom Shechar Beit HaMikdash, from the days the Beit HaMikdash was ninalu, locked up, Shari Tefillah ninalu. The prayers, gates of prayer were locked up as well. What does that mean? When you pray today, what do you mean locked? It means it's much harder to have our prayers accepted. When the Beit HaMikdash was there, it was much easier. When the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, it's much harder to have our prayers answered. There is one exception. What is the exception to that rule?
Kotel?
Now, the Kotel is just the wall that surrounds the mountain that it was on. Now, what is the exception to the rule that HaKadosh Baruch Hu locked the gates of prayer? You can look inside. It's not a secret. Top of page 122.
Beit Mikdash?
Now that's destroyed.
No, the next time it gets rebuilt.
No. So it's when you pray with tears in your eyes. That's what it says. Right? As I cry and plead, that is something, the gates of tears, the Sha'arei Dima'ah, says the Gemara, Lo Ninalu. That gate's always opened. When you pray with tears, or as though you're crying, you have to have actual tears coming out, but you cry with like crying out to Hashem through sadness, that is still...
Happiness. Tears of joy, Rabbi.
yeah, okay. Tears of joy also good. Okay, it says Shari Dimot, so maybe the Dimot you want to say. Usually Dimot are tears of sadness, of desperation, of challenge, of difficulty. But okay, we'll take your positive spin, Lior. You cry with, if you pray with Simcha, it's also very, very good. So what was the reason the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed? What was the spiritual roots? What? So the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed for 3 reasons. And the second Beit HaMikdash was for a different reason. So the first one are the 3 cardinal sins. That is idol worship. It's also murder. And it's also forbidden relationships. Those are the 3 cardinal sins. And because of Avodah Zarah, Shfichut Damim, and Gilui Arayot, the first temple was destroyed. Comes the Gemara and says, well, what about second Beit HaMikdash? One reason. The second temple was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred. And what form does baseless hatred come? Lashon Hara. It's a form of, all baseless hatred stems from Lashon Hara. Because unless you speak out your hatred, nothing's going to happen. It doesn't spread. It doesn't enact itself. Either you're speaking Lashon Hara to the person, about the person, for the person, whatever it is. So there is the rabbis say, since these 3 destroyed the first temple, and this one destroyed the second temple, it must be this one is equal to all those 3. So Lashon Hara is equal to idol worship, murder, forbidden relationships.
Is it like other people doing it or just the Jews?
Jewish people. It's our Beit HaMikdash. Us. We do it. We may be influenced by the other nations, but it's us doing it.
When you say forbidden relationships, is this...
Forbidden sexual relationships.
But is that talking with like other people or like...
As opposed to what?
No, but is that just like having like relationships with like a woman in Nida? Or is that referring to...
It actually would involve all forbidden relationships.
So that's included in
Yeah,
that?
well, although that's karet, which is pretty bad, but it's usually is referring to having relations with somebody else's wife
Okay.
who's already married to somebody else, which you don't want to mess with because that's really bad. Okay?
No, I was just wondering about how that, like, because I know that the Torah uses that language.
Yeah, usually it's referring specifically though to a woman who's married to somebody else. Okay, page 123. Okay, and there's the Gemara over there we're going to go into, but the Romans realized this was a problem, and they knew that the Jewish people would have their if they were killed spiritually, they're killed physically. Before we're killed physically, we're killed spiritually, right? Which is why we managed to survive the whole Haman thing, because we were strong spiritually. Okay? We were strong spiritually, so when Haman came to attack us and wanted to try to kill us, we were spiritually ready for that. We had fasted, we had prayed a lot, so he was not able to hurt us. Okay? So the spiritual and physical destruction of the Jewish people go hand in hand. Okay? And that's on page 123. The 3 cardinal sins they're called, these are called the Yaharog, V'lo Ya'avor. Yaharog, V'lo Ya'avor. The 3 things a person should rather die for than do. Which means, if Lo Aleinu, a person puts a gun to your head and says, kill that person, you can't do it. V'lo Yarog, V'lo Ya'avor. You should rather be killed than transgress. 3 cardinal sins. You don't have to give your life up for eating kosher. You don't have to give your life up for Shabbat. That's why you're allowed to break Shabbat to save a life, pikuach nefesh. That's why you're allowed to save your life by eating non-kosher food. This means these are 3 sins that a person should give their life up rather than commit. A person should die. If a person puts a gun to a person's head and says, worship this idol, they should say, I'd rather die. If a person puts a gun to a person and says, and eat that non-kosher food, they should say, where's the mustard? Right? That's it. You don't have to give your life up. These 3 are cardinal sins. They are the most chamur of all of them. Okay? If a person puts a gun to someone's head and said, have relations with that woman you're allowed to have relations with, you should give your life up rather than do. You don't want to. You don't want to do it. It's like these crazy, suicide bombers who go kill themselves for God, right? Who want to do it. Lahavdil, elef avdalot. We don't want to, but we found ourselves in a situation. Because of that, you have to give your life up rather than do. Yeah.
When Mashiach comes,
Yeah.
are these 3 things still going to be like an issue?
No one's going to be involved in them. They're not going to want to.
I can't fathom that.
You can. You can't. I'll tell you why you can. If I told you right now, do you have the desire right now to kill somebody in this room? I'm going to assume not. If you do, don't tell me. You don't have any desire. You may not be happy with them. You have no desire to kill them. Do you still have free will to kill somebody in this room? You have free will. You have free will to do it. If you wanted, you could do it. But you wouldn't do it because it's not a challenge for you. Same thing. That same desire you have right now will apply to everybody else. That I just won't have the desire to do it. I could still do it. This is what the Ramban describes as going from free will to natural will. You're not going to have the desire to, just like you don't have the desire right now to eat a pig sandwich. If I gave you a pig sandwich right now, even if you were hungry, you would not eat a pig, but you would, okay, fine, because, I'm just saying, I'm trying to give you an example that you understand. It's going to be the same for everybody though. What you feel right now will apply to everybody once Mashiach comes. They're not having a desire to sin. They just won't have it. It's going to be beyond their...
It's hard for me to understand just because we live in such a, not like a horrible world that
A world of sin, I understand. I get it. So I have to give you an...
Like me to like the most evil person in the world that one day he'll not have like a serial killer.
I'm just showing that it's possible that a person can reach... you have to be a great tzaddik not to want to kill people. Most people in the world, I want to assume, don't want to kill other people. I'd like to think that. So that's going to be the normal, and all that comes from the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God's knowledge is going to cover the entire earth, and that's where that's going to come from. Yeah.
And these 3 things don't have anything to do with the coming of Mashiach, right?
No. Well, they do indirectly, because of this temple is destroyed, which leads to Galut. Therefore, if the temple is not rebuilt, these 3 must still be happening, and this one still be happening. Otherwise, the temple would be there now. And there is no temple. Right? Makes sense, yeah? Obviously, that this is the fact that these were not there means that it's still a problem for our people in the world. There is one famous Gemara we have to look at very quickly on page 124. I know we're running today, we have to cover a lot of ground. It's a story from the Gemara which is called the reason for the Beit HaMikdash being destroyed, but it's not this story, it's stories like this that were happening at the time. And it's a story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Very famous. So we read it usually, they'll learn it on Tisha B'Av. Kamsa was a man who had a son called Bar Kamsa, his son, Bar Kamsa. And one of them had a friend, and that friend to the other one was an enemy. So Kamsa was invited to the party. By mistake, his son, Bar Kamsa, was invited wrongly, his enemy. So the wrong person goes to the party, who's this guy who threw the party's enemy, and he sees him there and he says, get out of my party, I don't want you here. And he turns around and be like, I'll pay for my meal, just let me stay, don't embarrass me. Well, he said, by the way, embarrassing someone is like killing them. And he said, I'm going to stay. I'll pay for half the meals. He goes, no. I'll pay for all the meals. He says, no, get out. He embarrassed him. Everyone who was present didn't say anything. They let this embarrassment happen. This were the seeds that led to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. These are the seeds that led to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. There's a lot more to that story, and you can go through when you study for your final, you go through the story, but this led to it. Right? People who could have helped him didn't. Right? This guy was kind of left alone to hurt somebody else, and this was typical of the way people were acting at the time. They just didn't care about each other. There was baseless hatred, and there was no achdut. When there's no achdut, then we speak lashon hara, and that's what the Chavetz Chaim says on page 125. At the end of the temple period, baseless hatred. This is note 6, right? Psof yimot bayit sheni, gavra sinat chinam v'lashon hara. There was a lot more sinat chinam and lashon hara, and that's why the temple was destroyed. That's what he says. Okay. Why baseless hatred? Why is that considered? Because it reflects hatred between the Jewish people of why they spoke bad about each other. So the speech was a symptom of the hatred between them. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe the hatred was a symptom of the bad speech that was being spoken about each other. Either way, the two came together to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. Which obviously takes us to the last piece we'll look at today, which is, so how are you meant to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash? By Ahavat Yisrael. Ahavat Yisrael. When we love each other, right, that's what the rabbis tell us, that's how we get to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. When we do mitzvot bein adam l'chaver. If these ones destroy, right, and number 3, and these two are bein adam l'chavero averot. So how do we build the third? What does that mean? Build the third? How do we bring Mashiach? So he builds is through Ahavat Yisrael. Okay, that was what destroyed. So you learn that from what destroyed to how we rebuild. Got it? They reflect each other.
I also think it reflects like the way we got the Torah to begin with. Like,
Exactly. We got the Torah, which was the prerequisite to going into the land of Israel. We got the Torah by Ish Echad B'Lev Echad, with unity. Right? There was no lashon hara by Har Sinai. That is absolutely correct. There was with the sin of the spies, but that was later on. At the time of Har Sinai, we were meant to get the Torah and go straight to Israel. That was the plan A, which never fulfilled.
We can never get back to that like one until we're like tied to
It's
one
tough. It's tough. It is tough. It's going to have to, or because we know the third Beit Mikdash will be rebuilt, so we're going to have to get to some point. As I gave a share last night, I pointed out how right now most people are not speaking lashon hara about each other, speaking lashon hara about our enemy. So Hashem had to bring along all these terrible things to us in Israel, because everyone's speaking about the enemy rather than about each other. I haven't studied this, but I'm going to assume that the amount of lashon hara that's been spoken about the Jewish people by the Jewish people over the past few days has been reduced dramatically.
How do you know?
I'm speculating. I don't know,
Because you can also say
but I'm right.
worse, that it's like both. We're saying lashon hara about them and each other.
That's not lashon hara. That's lashon tov. Speak bad about your enemies who want to destroy you.
Than we are.
What?
They've been doing much worse things than we are.
Yeah.
Saying, like, we shouldn't be like, we can't speak bad about, like, how is that?
I'm saying that you can. It's not bad to speak bad about them.
Right.
That's kind of taking up all our conversation.
Right.
So we're not speaking about each other, at least. Sad, ironic, a little bit.
Are there going to be any consequences, like repercussions, if Hashem brings? I know that like it won't come with a miracle, but will there be any other like repercussions from Hashem? He is like has to like bring Mashiach to us versus us like.
Okay, that's a much bigger topic. I can't get into it now. Next semester I do a Mashiach class.
I took your Mashiach class.
Are we discussed in great detail there?
No, I know.
Oh, you did it many years ago.
I don't remember that.
I did an abridged version of it for that class that you were in, I think.
I don't remember the like, just in general the like punishment, because I know that like something so simple, be kind to everyone, Mashiach will come. If we can't do that, then
That would build it. Yeah, maybe it's that simple. Taylor, maybe it's that simple. Maybe it is. Okay. Oh, one last piece. So that's why we do halach ma'anya. We start the Pesach Seder with chesed towards each other. We start the Pesach Seder with chesed towards each other. Why is that? Because we want to say we want to build the third and final Beit HaMikdash. And we start by doing chesed towards each other. That's what the Chasam Sofer says. That's why we say, that's why we finish the Pesach Seder with L'Shana B'Av Yerushalayim. That means with Mashiach and the third Beit HaMikdash. Good? All right, that was a crash course. We'll stop over there, and we'll, Mr. Hashem, we'll review everything next class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.